Hello everyone, it's Steve with Aptera Owners Club. I just got done watching Drew's video that he released today called Response to MKBHD Aptera Comments. And I didn't even realize that MKBHD had made any Aptera comments until I watched Drew's video, where Drew makes a very well-reasoned explanation of the benefits of Aptera. And if you want to go watch it, you totally should. But this is the video where he made the comments about Aptera, and it is a podcast called Waveform. And let's listen to it together, and we'll talk about it a little bit. But it kind of made me think about some other stuff that maybe you guys will find interesting.
And the EV everyone keeps telling me to check out, which has solar panels on it, has 3 wheels, and I also don't think will ever ship, but they talk about it a lot.
Okay, so a lot of us have been talking about how we want Marquez to look at Aptera and maybe review it, and we thought maybe he doesn't know about it. He definitely knows about it. He definitely has heard about Aptera, and he doesn't think it's going to ship at the moment. So I think he doesn't think it's serious. So maybe that's why he's not thinking about it.
Is the Aptera EV.
Oh,
They claim up to 1,000 miles on a single charge.
that's
And
that
it looks
like
this.
yeah. It's that.
Oh, yeah.
Street. I guess it could be street.
Is that the
legal
one
'cause
that-
there's all those other things
That has like solar power?
Yeah, it's got some solar power.
Okay.
But if you're not aware of what it is, yeah, it has 3 wheels. It's like it doesn't look
like
like
the
a car.
Jetsons.
It looks like it's
Yeah.
supposed. It looks like a
Tricycle.
science project that's supposed to hit
Yeah.
1,000 miles.
It looks like a car that would be in the future if image.
It looks like a car you would buy
Society
and then
of
learn that the Hummer EV
society.
and the Cybertruck are on the roads and be like, I'm never driving this on the roads.
Yeah.
Ever.
Never driving again.
Okay, so these are very typical responses to the Aptera. They're like, is that even a car? It does look super futuristic, and it looks like it's very safe, like it's going to get squashed by a Hummer EV or Cybertruck. Of course, you guys know my thoughts on this. I mean, my thoughts on this is we just need to have smaller vehicles overall. We are in an arms race in the United States where people just want bigger and bigger cars. And these things like the Cybertruck and the Hummer EV are just absolute behemoths. And most of the people who are driving those things do not need a car that big. I mean, eventually, are we all going to be driving like semi trucks, and then like people driving Cybertrucks will be like, oh my goodness, my car is too small to be on the road with these behemoth. Everyone else is driving a semi truck, so I need to go drive a semi truck too, just to feel safe. No, I think we just need to get to right size transportation so that everyone feels safer. Because by driving bigger and bigger cars, you can make yourself a little bit safer, but you make the road dangerous for everyone else. But anyways, so they're worried about safety, and we've talked a lot about safety on this channel. And Drew, in his response video, talks a lot about safety, so you could check it out. But then they think it looks weird, and of course it does look weird, but it looks like weird for a reason.
It has 100-mile-an-hour top speed. The Aptera has a claimed 400 miles of range on the 40 kilowatt-hour battery and a 1,000-mile range.
How
on
much does it
100.
weigh though? That thing's got to be 80% battery weight.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It also has solar panels. So like
Yeah, I guess, but solar panels, even on the smallest version of that, are adding.
not all.
I think
Single-digit miles.
Every single company that's put solar panels on has, even in their most optimistic market, said like at best this is controlling your like air conditioning for the day.
Okay, so it's very clear from listening to this conversation that they have a very superficial understanding of what Aptera is doing, and they don't understand how efficiency translates to greater benefit from solar panels. Now, a lot of people feel like the solar panels is a little gimmicky, and maybe it is, but the solar panels only work if the car is super efficient. Yeah, if you put solar panels on a Hummer EV, it's not going to do squat for you. And if you put like 2 solar panels on it, it's not going to do too much. If you put a lot of solar panels on a very efficient car, that's when you start getting reasonable solar range.
Yeah. The
Yeah.
Prius Prime that I tested
4 miles.
when I left it parked
Something like that.
outside for several days gained several miles.
Okay, so a Prius Prime has like a very small solar panel, and it's a fairly efficient car, but you have very few solar panels on it. So you can't expect a tremendous amount of solar range on that. Okay. So anyways,
Of range.
this made me think about more than about what they were talking about in terms of Aptera. It made me think about some cognitive biases that we have. But before I get to that, actually, MKBHD responded to Drew's video. And so from this Waveform podcast, it was a little unclear, like, did he think that Aptera was not coming to the market because its claims of efficiency were totally not true? Or did he feel like it's not coming to market for business reasons? And he clarifies that. So if you look at this, he says, nice video. Just to be perfectly clear about Aptera, I believe almost all of their physics claims. So he believes that the efficiency claims are possible. They are like a maximum energy optimization science project with today's battery and material tech. Kind of reminds me of the Mercedes Vision EQXX I got to play with. I just have zero confidence that the market for the product they're hoping to make is anywhere near big enough to keep the company alive, which is a shame. See Faraday Future, Lordstown, etc., and even the current dire state of Lucid. I do hope they prove me wrong, and if they prove me wrong, I'll be first in line to check it out. So the good news is if they do deliver a vehicle, MKBHD is totally aware of the car, and he likes the concept. He's on board with it, and he wants to check it out. So I think, Aptera, if you're listening, you guys have basically gotten the thumbs up, and that is huge because, he's a huge factor. He's got 18.1 million subscribers. I remember watching him when he first started, and I remember he was very, very good. He's an excellent communicator, amazing, and that's why he's been so successful. And having him look at the Aptera, especially knowing that he was been kind of skeptical of the business plan, I think gives even a little more validity to his review when he gets it. So Aptera, build the PI, get it in his hands. All right. So then he compares it to Faraday Future in Lordstown, and I think the people that are responding to him, if you can go to Drew's video and read the comments for yourself. But a lot of people are like, Faraday Future, Lordstown, those are not fair comparisons to Aptera. I mean, Faraday Future has some like $200,000-$300,000 car that's like in my opinion, has no use case. Lordstown never really delivered on a vehicle and didn't really have any advantages over the Ford F-150 or the Chevy Silverado EV or even the Cybertruck or the Rivian. It didn't give any. There was no advantages to it. There's no competitive advantage to the Lordstown's truck. So, an Aptera right now has enough pre-orders that if everyone to go through, they would funnel them for years. And even if they were to capture less than 1% of the automotive market, that would be way more than they can produce. Right now, Aptera is production limited, not demand limited. That's what I've been saying for a long time. And I think that's going to be true for the foreseeable future. And I think that Aptera is a whole new class of vehicle. But anyway, that's all beside the point. The takeaways from this are MKBHD knows about the Aptera. 2, he has now agreed to review it. So Chris and Audra and Quincy, you guys heard it here. He said it for himself. He'll be first in line to check it out. So get it to him, please. I think it'll be great. Now, 2, what this made me think about was cognitive bias and marketing and celebrity endorsements and that kind of things. And MKBHD is a celebrity. I mean, lots of people know about him. He has 18 million subscribers, and celebrities have a lot of power to influence people's decisions and their choices and their thought processes. And why is that? And that's because of several cognitive biases that we all have. This is an interesting website from Visual Capitalist, and they talk about the major cognitive biases. And these are cognitive biases that we all have. None of us are immune to any of these. We all have these cognitive biases. And the cognitive bias that that celebrity endorsements are part of is this thing called the halo effect. And what is the halo effect? The halo effect is a cognitive bias that occurs when you make opinions about people by knowing a certain thing about them. So you know that they are famous, or you know that they are attractive, or you know that they're a great communicator, or you know that they're experts in one thing. Then you assign you assign their opinions of a higher value because you know those other things. But just because someone is famous does not mean that they're an expert in something. Just because someone's an expert in one thing does not mean that they're an expert in another thing. Just because someone is attractive does not mean that their opinions on a different matter are valid. Just because someone is nice doesn't mean. But that's the way we think. We think that way. And why do we do that? It's because we have a tendency to validate our first impressions, which is another cognitive bias called anchoring. It removes cognitive dissonance because our brains just associate. If one person has one good quality, they must have other good qualities. And if they don't, there's just this cognitive dissonance. It reduces cognitive load. You don't have to think, you don't have to like reassess every statement on its own merits if you use this halo effect. You're like, well, this person is nice, attractive, smart, good communicator. I'm going to accept what this person says because then I don't have to think about the merits of it. That's what we all do, and it can be effective. I mean, generally, people that are good communicators and experts in other things, they tend to have better opinions than most, and so you can do that. It kind of makes sense, but it can lead to bad decisions. It's not necessarily true. And this actually led me back to a couple of books that I read a while back. In this picture, you see, this person who probably represents God from the Michelangelo Sistine Chapel painting. It's kind of reminiscent of that. And then there's these two guys, and they don't mention in this page who these two guys are, but I recognize these two guys. These two guys are Daniel Kahneman and Amos Tversky. It's these two guys, Amos Tversky and Daniel Kahneman. These two guys are the founders of a branch of economics called behavioral economics. And economics for the longest time was predicated on the belief that people were rational beings and that we would make decisions that are logical and based on our own self-interest. So when they did economic theory, they would be like, well, people are obviously going to do things that are in their self-interest, and they're going to act rationally, and therefore we can predict their movements. And then they always wondered, well, how come economic theory wasn't right? How come we made all these wrong predictions? And these guys figured out, well, people aren't rational. And that's like not a newsflash to most of us, but Daniel Kahneman actually won the Nobel Prize fairly recently for his contributions. Unfortunately, Amos Tversky died before the Nobel Prize, and they can't award Nobel Prizes okay, I don't know how to say the word, but after they're dead. But I learned about these guys from this book by Michael Lewis. He's the guy who also wrote like Moneyball and a couple other books, and it was called The Undoing Project. And in this book, there's a kind of a funny anecdote about Amos Tversky. This guy was evidently incredibly brilliant. Like, he could listen to a lecture on pretty much any topic and instantly grasp it. Like he's a psychologist by training, but he could listen to a lecture on quantum physics. He could listen to a lecture on physical chemistry. He could listen to a lecture on evolutionary biology or economics or mathematics or anything. And then he would ask questions that were extremely insightful and demonstrated that he completely understood what was talked about. And he was thought so highly by his peers that they made a kind of tongue-in-cheek intelligence test that they said was the simplest intelligence test there was. And they call it the Tversky intelligence test. And the intelligence test was, the faster you realized that Amos Tversky was smarter than you, the smarter you were. The slower you were at realizing that he was smarter than you, the dumber you were. So that was the entire intelligence sets, which I thought was a pretty funny anecdote. But Daniel Kahneman wrote this book called Thinking Fast and Slow, where he talks about these cognitive biases. If you look at the table of contents here, he talks about heuristics and biases, and these are kind of mental shortcuts we all use in our thinking, because having to think through things rationally on every point is just extremely taxing. It's cognitively taxing, and we can't do it. So we use kind of heuristics and biases, and this leads to overconfidence in our beliefs and things like that. So anyway, these are two very interesting books: The Undoing Project and Thinking Fast and Slow. And if you're interested, I'll link the books below. But I thought that it was very interesting that we find out now that MKBHD is aware of Aptera, and he seems to be a supporter of it, because he thinks it's a shame, and he hopes that they prove him wrong. So he's like, in his heart, he's for it, but he thinks rationally that they're not going to succeed. And he's not wrong. Like we've said several times on this channel, 9 out of 10 startups fail, and there's only been one successful new car company in the past 50 years or so, and that's Tesla. And you could make an argument that Rivian is successful and maybe Lucid is successful. That's still up in the air. Those two may not survive. So startups overall are 90% failure rate, and automotive startups are even higher failure rate. So even knowing nothing about a company, if you told me they're an automotive startup and you just said, well, they're going to fail, you're going to be right most of the time. And so, I mean, he's being rational by saying that just from a statistical standpoint, but not knowing too much about the advantages of the Aptera. I mean, we have all these cognitive biases about Aptera too. We have belief bias, we have groupthink, we have optimism bias about Aptera. So we have these biases too, and I think we should just be aware of that. But so he just thinks that they're going to fail from a business standpoint, not from a physics standpoint, not from a point of their efficiency claims. Like, he believes the engineering is happening. He just doesn't believe they have a viable business. But he is on top. He's aware of it, and he likes it, and he wants to be proven wrong, and he would like to check it out. So Aptera, please build the PI and get them in his hands. All right, let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Thanks for watching, guys. Have a great day.